bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Welcome, Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Monday, February 13th, 45 days into the new year, just 320 days left, and I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. How you doing, everybody? All right, I'm dialing in right now. I thought we had levels right, but, you know, that's what happens. And I hope we're good. Anyway, for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planets, I am your oh so humble host, Jimmy Church. Man, oh man, we're here tonight. We made it. I'm back in the chair. We're in the bunker. Tonight, we have very special guests with us, Raymond Szymanski, award-winning author and researcher, who is the undisputed expert on Wright-Patterson. That's right, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That's what we're going to do tonight. 50 Shades of Grays is his book. Tomorrow night, Barry Strom is going to be here. And then Wednesday night, Anais Salas is going to be with us. Thursday night is Fader Night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom. Got a great week lined up. It is dead ahead. The call-in number is 323-825-5045. Follow us on Twitter, at JChurchRadio, Facebook, YouTube. You know what to do. Everything is Fade to Black, Jimmy Church Radio. Just go over to the website. Click on those three little icons. All right. Follow, like, and subscribe. The sandbox is hashtag F2B on Twitter. We don't bite. Let me get that going live here. Wow, Twitter's already nuts. Welcome, everybody. Oh, man. Okay. Yeah, as you can imagine, we just spent three rough days, action-packed days. So much fun hanging out with everybody. More on that in just a bit. Hashtag F2B on Twitter. Come and hang out with us in the sandbox. Any questions or comments during the show tonight, just use hashtag F2BQ. You can also email throughout the show, Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. Got the dancing gifts going. We are back to normal. All right. Subscribe to the podcast. We have over 600 archive shows, everybody. Help support the show. Custom apps, Apple, Android, everything that you need is over at the Apple Store or Google. And you can pick up the apps, download them, and then just subscribe for $2 per month. $2. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the podcast banner. All right. Do check out all of our sponsors. That is how this show runs. It runs because this is America, and that's what we do. We have sponsors. Please support the show. Help yourself. help our sponsors. Everybody benefits. Just go, click on the banners. Use the promo codes that are there, right? You're going to get yourself discounts, free shipping, all that stuff because you guys are Fadernauts. It's that simple. All right, the first big conference of the season is over. Wow, the Conscious Life Expo. It's, in my opinion, and there was a vibe there this year. If you were there, you know what I'm talking about. It was excellent. Just, it was packed. It was fun. And there you go. It's over. Wow. And if you were there, maybe we'll have some time for some phone calls later on tonight, and you can tell us how much fun you had. 323-825-5045. We'll open up the phone lines a little bit later. Coming up next is Contact in the Desert. And that is May 19th through the 22nd in Joshua Tree, California. And there you go. Now you can go to contactinthedesert.com. Tickets and info are there. The full speaker list is there as well. And we hung out with Paul Andrews, Victoria from Contact in the Desert. It's, these types of conferences, and certainly the Conscious Life Expo is one of them. The conference promoters and the speakers, it's all one family. And to see Paul there hanging out and Victoria was really cool. And that's the next big one. And Paul, it was really cool hanging out with you. And if you're listening, thank you so much. You're probably en route back home, or maybe still at the Hilton at the LAX. And I don't think the conference ends for a couple of more hours. We got out of there last night. More on that in a minute. Right now, let's get the show cracking. Oh, by the way. I posted a bunch of pictures over on my personal Facebook page. So if you want to repost those in Twitter and get that done for me, because right now I'm out of my mind. And so if you want to repost those pictures and get those up in Twitter, it'll be really cool. I'll retweet them. Okay, let's get the show cracking. Happy birthday to today. Peter Gabriel is 67. Stockard Channing today is 73. Peter Tork today is 75. And I saved the best for last, actually. Well, I don't know. Got Peter Gabriel in here. Henry Rollins today is 56. There you go. On this day in history, in 1633, my friends, it went down. On this day in 1633, astronomer Galileo Galilei arrives in Rome to face charges of heresy for advocating that the earth revolves around the sun and not the other way around. He was put under house arrest indefinitely by Pope Urban VIII. That's right. He spent the rest of his days at his villa before dying on January 8th, 1642. Right. On this day in 1633. Wow. Fader fact. Nostradamus not only published his prophecies, Nostradamus also published a book of recipes, otherwise called a recipe book. A book of recipes for bleaching hair, toothpaste, jams, jellies, laxatives, and marmalade. And that is a Fader fact. All right, there you go. Tonight, very special guest, Raymond Szymanski is here. He is an award-winning author and researcher who is the undisputed expert on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It's going to go down tonight on this show. Tomorrow night, Barry Strom is here. And on Wednesday, we have Anais Salas is going to join us. Thursday night is another Fader night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom. The call-in number is 323-825-5045. All right. Normally on the day after shows like this, like the Conscious Life Expo, we do an entire show as a recap. We're not going to do that tonight. Tonight we have Raymond in here. But, wow, that's a cool shot of it. What is that, a giant flying V? Holy crap. That is insane. That's really cool. I've never seen that before, and that will get a retweet. Thank you, Mark Tarana. Wow. Wow, that is the most insane thing I've ever seen. It is a giant flying V. Looks like it's about 10 foot tall. And there is somebody playing the guitar. I can't hear it, but I'm going to check that out a little bit later. Okay, so these are my highlights. I'm just going to run through this because it was a dynamic weekend. We had a great time, and I have no idea, because it's such a large conference, I couldn't really gauge how many people were attending this year. It seemed like it was twice as big last year. And the vibe there was so uppity and, great speakers, but great people, and, of course, the Fadernauts. But it was amazing. Now, looking back, from today's Monday, and looking back, there was a lot of really cool things that happened. But there was one event that doesn't normally take place at something like this, and that is Jason Martell proposed to his girlfriend, Taylor Nicole. And that was at the beginning of the Ancient Aliens panel. Now, I'm going to let a little secret out. Okay, first off, Jason and I were the only ones that knew about this. And of course, Rita did too. But Jason called me up a month or two ago and said, "This is the plan. You want to do it?" I said, "Absolutely, man." He said, "Okay." So we set it up. Jason was going to be introduced first, and which was really funny because the band, talking about who was going to sit where. So I moved Jason over, and Jason is sitting in the driver's seat, so to speak, right next to me. And this is how it went down. I introduced Jason, and I asked him a question or something. And Jason stands up. Oh, no, let me back up. Before all of this was going down, I look at Jason. I know this is about to happen. And he's staring dead ahead. And he's thinking, and I could tell, the wheels are turning. I'm like, dude. Dude. And he's like, "Man, I'm cool. I said, all right, let's go ahead and do this." So anyway, he stands up and walks down. And he's talking about the future and what the future means to him and his life and the world, and I'm watching Taylor, and I know what's about to happen. She doesn't have a clue, none, and she's watching Jason like, "Jason, what are you walking over here for? This is a panel." And he walks up and just does it, man. Gets down on one knee like proper, and hits her. And with the question, and it was an unbelievable moment. Okay, you guys are posting pictures of this right now. Thank you for doing this. There you go. Look at her face right here, and you can see. Look at everybody around. It was a magical moment, and look at her face right here. Okay, I'm going to retweet this. Thank you, Mark. You pulled her. I don't know who took this picture, but it is the correct one to post. Check out Nicole's face, Taylor's face. And she said yes. And I was standing there, and just like everybody else, it was a very emotional moment. It was very cool. And the look on her face right here says it all. And it was just an amazing moment at the Conscious Life Expo. So congratulations, you two. And if you're listening now, again, congratulations. It was a very special moment for not only the both of you, but allowing all of us to share it with you. It was very, very, very cool. And in case you're wondering, yes, the Rock was pretty nice too as well. So there you go. Congratulations. And just what a great future you two have. You're very much in love. So there you go. All right. So that was that highlight, right? How do you top that? Oh, man. Well, the night before, we did Fade to Black Live. And great crowd. It's a very, 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 very big room. And I would, the ebb and flow was there. was probably half full, maybe got to 3/4, back down to half, people coming and going. It's a 3-hour show, but very, very big crowd. Thank you for that. That was really cool. But if you were there, you got to see David Wilcock and Corey Good open up the show. They were speaking at 8 o'clock right after this, just like they did last year. And so that part was really, really cool. And they opened up the show for the first half hour. And again, the audience response and everything, it was great. But the questions back and forth, it was good. It was open. It was a lot of fun. And I knew that we hit the ground running. Rita and I had worked really hard all week to make sure that we got everything up and running and the guest and everything done. But that day, Friday, we had to get up early in the morning and get up and get out of here. By the time we got to the Hilton, we wanted to be there in the early afternoon. Because of traffic, we were on the road for 2.5 hours just to go 17 miles. It was crazy. And but anyway, so we got there, and instead of being able to get there early, set up, relax, and have a nice smooth, we were go. And so we did sound check. We got through it. The show started at 7. We didn't get done with the sound check until 6:15, 6:30. Enough time to get up to the room, take off clothes, get changed, and get back down and start the show. But luckily, the audio and everything was cool. So we got that done, and everything worked. That was amazing. Next up was Linda Moulton Howe. Always the character. Great conversation with Linda. Whitley Strieber hit the stage. And Whitley, what was really great about this was Richard Dolan was off to the side, standing behind the curtain. I was watching Richard peek through and listen to Whitley. And Whitley was pretty amazing. It was pretty cool to sit next to Whitley. And so that was that part. I'm just telling you my side of it, right? I think next up was Richard Dolan. Then we had, and Richard, again, just a very dynamic, open conversation, as was with everybody. Then we had Gail Thackeray and Brigida Tamacchio. I forget, she does that great Italian accent. Next, and that was really, really cool, too, as well. Gail and Brigida at this particular conference are rock stars, and this conference is kind of built for the two of them, if you know what I mean, their personality and what they do and stuff. But they were great because they're radio. That's what they do. They have a radio show, too, as well, and I was able to just kick back and relax. We had Mike Barra. Danny and Brinkley came up, Stephen Halpern. Mike Barra closed the show once again, and Stephen Halpern came up for the first time, and that was really cool. Danny, after he was done, he went down and sat with Rita in the front row. You guys didn't hear this on the broadcast. Well, maybe you did. But Danny and Rita were in the front row talking for the next, 90 minutes. And we're all into it. So that's what was going on in the front row. And then Maureen St. Germain. Just a great, great show. So we got that out of the way. And this is what happens next. We wrap the show, get done, boom, 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 and I get down to the bar. And I'm sitting there, and up comes Jordan Maxwell. And I look over, and I said, Jordan, come here. So he comes over, and that was probably around 10:30, 10:45. And Jordan comes in and ends up hanging out with the Fadernauts. And then we pull up a chair. Jordan and I sit, and we talk for the next 2 hours, one-on-one. The bar on Friday night was remarkably empty. There was a lot of events that were going on until 11:30, so everybody was out doing things. So it allowed Jordan and I the time to sit in a couple of chairs and just talk. And I've never done that with Jordan before. And wow, I wish you could have been there. But anyway, I was able to ask all those questions I've had in my head with and about Jordan over all of these years. And there's a picture of this on my Facebook page if you want to get that posted. But wow. So the other, there's Karen with Jordan. So what ended up, Jordan that weekend hung out with the Fadernauts. And he came down and sat with us at the big Fadernaut table in the bar last night. We took over the bar, as well we should, and it was really cool. And he hung out with us. And that's where I want to bring in Juanita and Jeff from River Moon Coffee. They were there. They graciously provided us with coffee to hand out all weekend long, which we did. Pounds and pounds and pounds of coffee. Thank you for doing that. And but Juanita and Jeff, for the first time at a conference like this, were able to meet everybody, all of the Fadernauts and all of their favorite speakers and researchers. But last night, they got to sit down with Jordan, and I was able to just kick back and watch these three sit and talk all night. That was amazing. And then the other thing that was really cool for the Fadernauts and so forth was Corey Good hung out with us and sat down and just spent the evening with us. And that was really, really cool. Corey, David does his thing, but Corey, this is the first time that Corey was able to not only present, but just kind of hang out. And that's what he did. I introduced Corey Saturday. No, or was it yesterday? Man, I can't even believe I can't remember now. And he was all right. Corey was all right. And hanging off to the side of Corey's presentation after I introduced him, walked out, was Linda Moulton Howe and Richard Dolan standing there watching and listening. And I just left. I didn't want to interrupt. I just turned around and left. And pretty much that was the conversation for the rest of the conference was, were you there for Corey? And did you hear what he had to say? So I'll save that for another time. But that was pretty interesting to listen to the presentation and also everybody's reaction. It was pretty cool. All right, next, the Fadernauts. Now, all of you, the list is too long to go through. But when you go to conferences like this, and the Fadernauts come out like they do, it is one of the most humbling things to experience. And I don't know if I'll ever get used to it. That part doesn't really concern me. I hope I never get used to it. But wow. Seeing all of you come out together and hang out, and everybody knows who, and the support. I mean, I don't even have the words to describe what that's like. You guys are posting the pictures now, and thank you for that. Look at this. That's what it was like. Look at these pictures. You guys are the best. Last night, I don't know how many we had gathered around that table, but it was probably 15 or 20 or more, and just in that one spot. And to see that, the fade to black shirts and people walking around, and Rita couldn't take a step, or myself for a minute or two without somebody coming up and thanking us for the show. And it went on like that for 3 days. And it's just humbling. You wonder, you just wonder, are we getting the message out? Are we doing the right thing? Is it, do people get to hear what we're doing? And you go to a conference like this where there are just thousands and thousands of people, and to have them come up constantly and say thank you was just, what an experience. Just a wonderful experience. That's about all I have to say. Oh, there you go. I want to say this. David Hatcher Childress. David Hatcher Childress not only hung out, here he is here with us. There's Gigi. Where was this taken? Okay. Anyway, David hung out with us and just his experiences. And the other thing is that you don't see this on Ancient Aliens. You don't see this with David. If David doesn't agree with you, he puts down his head and he shakes it no. I watched him do this all weekend long. If he doesn't agree, he's going to shake his head no, and he's going to correct you. And it is just this wonderful trait that he's got. And that's the one thing I learned about David Hatcher Childers this weekend, man. If he's not buying what you're selling, or if he needs to correct you, he's such a wealth of knowledge. And I watched him lean his head down, put his chin on his chest, and shake his head no. Oh, man. There's Corey Childress, and that's when we took over that side of the bar. And they hung out with us all night long. So there you go. It was just a great weekend. I want to thank Q. I want to thank Serena Wright-Taylor. I want to thank Diana Maxwell, Shima. Oh, man, I'm going to leave some people off the list. All of the sound people. CG, you were great. Neil, you were great. Thank you so much. VJ Vaunt, who wasn't working there this year, but he was there, stopped by. Everybody at the Conscious Life Expo. If I've left somebody off the list, it's not intentional. Otto, you were just amazing. Thank you so much for all of your hard work and support. It was a great year, great everything, and we'll do it again next year, the Conscious Life Expo. All right, I'm going to get out of here. When I come back, it's going to be Raymond Szymanski right here. We are going to talk the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and 50 Shades of Gray. He worked there for 40 years. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. I'll be right back with Raymond Szymanski. Stay right there.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. In a world of GMO, genetically modified organisms, that is, chemicals, processed foods, and a healthcare system that's unraveling like a cheap suit, it's time to prepare. God created herbs, and herbs help man. Our body can heal itself, just sometimes we need assistance. You need some help? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our mild detox is quite powerful with its unique blend of 8 different herbs. And if you're looking for more, our non-GMO supplements will help you with different needs you might have. Health should be a top priority. Take care of your health naturally. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Give your body a treat. Let the herbs do their thing naturally. Read all the testimonies on the website, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Sickness and viruses are like intruders, and herbs are like warriors. Let the tea work for you. That's getthetea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade-or-Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Raymond Szymanski. 50 Shades of Grays. This portion of the show is brought to you by Life Change Tea. GetTheTea.com. Just go to the banner right now at Jimmy Church Radio. Click on it. Use the promo code Jimmy, either over the phone or online, and you're going to get yourself free shipping. GetTheTea.com. All right, follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Very simple. Email is Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. Award-winning author and researcher Raymond Szymanski is currently the undisputed expert on Wright-Patterson and its Air Force Base and the heralded connection to extraterrestrials. In his recently published book, 50 Shades of Grays, Evidence of Extraterrestrial Visitation to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and Beyond, Szymanski reveals unprecedented photographic evidence he has personally produced and factual information he has developed that supports the long-held rumors of Wright-Patterson's alien involvement. As a 40-year employee of Wright-Patterson, Raymond has unique first-hand access to locations and individuals with information that has eluded other researchers. He holds a Bachelor's of Science Electrical and Electronics and Engineering degree from the University of Detroit. In 1983, he completed his graduate studies in computer engineering at Wright State University. He holds 6 professional software certifications and has hundreds of hours of additional professional education. From 1983 to 1993, he led the ADA Joint Programs Office of Evaluation and Validation Team, sponsored by the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. His links to everything are over at JimmyChurchRadio.com, and I would like to welcome, for the first time to Fade to Black, Raymond Szymanski. Raymond, welcome to Fade to Black. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm happy to be here.
Raymond, first off, okay, before we get to the nuts and bolts of things, and I'm very excited to have you here, and you're absolutely right, to have somebody with the amount of time, 4 decades, right, that you've spent at Wright-Pat. And I've been there. I was there when I was a little kid, to the museum. There's one thing to talk about what you've heard about being at Wright-Pat, but it's a whole other thing when you've worked there for 40 years. So I'm excited about this. But you get the first-time guest disclaimer tonight. So let's do that first. This is just you and me sitting on my couch talking as friends. We're going to start where we start. We're going to end where we end, but we're going to end as friends. Are you ready to go?
Absolutely.
40 years. Okay, so let's kind of do this. Let's start here. 40 years is a long time. Do you remember how you landed the gig at Wright-Patterson and what led up to that? I mean, how did you get there?
The University of Detroit had a long-standing relationship with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. through what was called the Cooperative Education Program. And Wright-Pat in the early 70s was looking to go top heavy in electrical and electronics engineers because, believe it or not, back in 1973, we didn't even have the microprocessor yet. So they were looking ahead, and Air Force Research Labs, which wouldn't come into fruition for another couple of decades, but the predecessors, like the avionics laboratory where I went to work, were looking for double E's. That's what they called us, double E's, electronics and electrical engineers. So one day I get a notice in my student mailbox that says, hey, we got this cooperative education program. You've finished your sophomore year. What do you think about going to Wright-Patterson for a work study? Well, I was one of 6 children. 3 of us were in college at the time. It was a single income family. And I said, hey, absolutely, anything to help my folks out. So I went to the cooperative education program. The guy said, we've got 5 or 6 slots. Would you like one of them? You're at the top of the double E heap here, one of the top 5 students in the class. What do you think? So I went down there with 3 other of my classmates, and that was January of 1973, and that's how I got the gig.
Now, before we get to what happened later at Wright-Pat, let's go backwards a little bit. Before college, did you have an interest in UFOs? Had you seen anything strange in the skies? Were your parents into that type of thing? What was your general interest in UFOs up to that point?
Well, I was interested in what was going on with the NASA program, and I'd sit out on a back porch when I was growing up, and I'd look at the stars, and I was kind of interested in astronomy, but I never got a telescope again. There was little money to go around. But I can remember even on winter nights when it was really crisp and clear and there wasn't any summer haze hanging out over the city, and I'd go out on the back porch, and it was pretty dark, and I'd stargaze. But prior to arriving at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, I didn't know an alien from a Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, fair enough, and I could totally understand that. What about the reputation of Wright-Pat? So you had no idea about Roswell or ufology and the investigations and so forth about Wright-Pat. You had no clue.
Not until the very first week.
And now I have, give me the lay of the land a little bit. I have been there. It is an absolute humongous installation. It is not small. It dominates the city. I would say that a lot of what goes on in Dayton and Cincinnati and that part, everything is, not everything, but everything supports the Air Force Base, right? The community, it is a very large installation, isn't it?
Wright-Patterson is the state's largest employer.
Exactly.
Hands down.
Right. And again, for you, being a civilian going into this atmosphere at first, did you have any idea the size of this installation and how important it was for the country?
Absolutely none. And the interesting part is I showed up on a very dreary, typical early January day in Dayton, Ohio area, and there were some co-op students who had preceded us, and we were going to kind of like exchange notes for a couple of days, and then they were going back to classes. So we basically made that transition over the Christmas break. And they gave me a tour, and I was just like, it was the window tour, so they were driving me around different parts of the base, and I said, this is a city.
Right.
There's over 8,000 acres. There's over 600 buildings. There were runways. There were lights. It was just overwhelming for the first couple days of indoctrination.
It's pretty trippy for a civilian because, and I want your experience with this because I'm an Army brat, but I lived on base and off base, and I see the transition. But civilians, you can't drive onto these bases, so you have no idea. And the dependents and the service people on the other side, they go off base a little bit, but pretty much the base itself is self-contained. You have shopping centers, commissaries, you don't have to leave the base if you don't want to. You've got movie theaters and bowling alleys, and you can do whatever you need. It's just schools, right? Everything is there. If you don't need to leave, if you don't want to leave the base, pretty much you don't have to. So civilians don't get to really experience what's there, and to see the military lifestyle as a civilian. That had to, I'm going to use a hip word here, that had to trip you out.
Well, in a way it did, but I think Wright-Patterson is atypical from the fact that it has about 12,000 civilian employees currently, and anywhere between 12 and 15,000 military. And there's absolutely no way they all can live on base. And in fact, Wright-Patterson quarters for the military is extremely limited. They have the brick area where it's mostly high-ranking colonels and generals, and a lot of the former, captain, major, lieutenant colonel housing was done away with because a lot of it was found to have been contaminated, was built on contaminated grounds, or things had been buried there and then were discovered, and so they literally closed many places where the mid-level officers would live. So I would say, there might be 1 or 2% living on base, but that's it. And yeah, they still have the BX and the commissary and the bowling alleys and all of that. But for the most part, the military is part of the community. They're outside the fences from after 5 p.m.
Now, I just went a couple of years ago. I drove around Wright-Pat. My brother got married, so I went back to Cincinnati, and we were driving around. And one of the things that overwhelmed me as you drive on the freeways there and the overpasses, big American flags, support our troops. Right? It's everywhere there. Cincinnati and Dayton are Wright-Pat.
Absolutely, without a doubt. If Wright-Patterson were to go away, which I can't see that happening as long as there's war in this world, I think the community would suffer immensely, probably more so than in any other type of base closure. Think about it. There's 25,000 daily employees plus the hundreds of contractors that work in and around the area, and the other contractors that may be distributed geographically across the country and across the globe. It would be an economic disaster of biblical proportions.
Right. Okay, now let's tell me about your first week. I'm sure that a couple of things popped off, and I know of the one event, right, when you were walking in. And I want you to share that first sentence that was said to you. But and it must have,
I will.
Yes, it must have been absolutely incredible, because if you weren't a ufologist, that sentence was as alien as just being an alien. So what happened?
This is actually one of my favorite little stories to tell people. It was my first week, and I was assigned to a GS-11, kind of a mid-level engineer at the time. And I can only refer to him as Corvette L, and I'll explain the reason why later. But Corvette L during the first week says, hey, why don't we cut across the hangar, which at that time was empty. There was nothing in it except pipes, cobwebs, and maybe a few birds that got in there. And we were going to the other side of the building, the other side of the hangar. He said, let's get a candy bar, and I'll show you where the greasy spoon is. Hey, that's great. Let's do that. So we leave what was building 22 business offices, step into the hangar, and he says, have you heard about our aliens?
Just like that.
Just like that. He drops it on me. I said, what? He said, well, we have aliens here on the base. And I said, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Well, in 1947, there was a crash, and they brought the aliens here along with their machine for evaluation. I said, really? He said, oh, yeah, and they keep them in the tunnels. We have tunnels?
Now, he was that open. So what that indicates to me, and I'm going to let you finish.
Sure.
But what that indicates to me is this is part of the culture, right? You're being indoctrinated. You're being brought in, and this is just part of the culture. This is just what's going on.
It was like a syringe full of alien DNA, and he was giving it to me.
Wow. Okay, please continue.
So we're walking through, and I said, well, can we go see these aliens in the tunnels? And Al says, well, no, not really. There's only a few people that get to see these aliens in the tunnels because it's a secret. So, I don't know secret. I don't know classified. I'm my first week, just finished sophomore year in college. So I said, well, what do you mean? How can this be a secret if you know about it? So he says, well, everyone on the base knows about it. Well, at that point, I'm starting to think these people must be drinking at lunch.
Right.
Because if it's a secret, how does the whole base know? So I mentioned the word secret the third time, and apparently as a co-op student, there was a 3 secret limit per day. And I said, well, if it's a secret, how do you know about it, and what's your definition of secret? And at that point, he said, oh, hey, let's grab the candy bar. We got to get back to work. But walking back through the hangar now, I'm thinking aliens and tunnels and secrets and, oh my. So that was my indoctrination into the DNA that is that long factology and mythology of UFOs and extraterrestrials. And I might add here that this just wasn't any mid-level engineer, because Corvette Al went on to become a member of the Senior Executive Service, which is the highest level that you can attain as a civilian in the Department of Defense. You are the equivalent of a flag officer or a general officer. You've got stars on your shoulders. So this wasn't just some babbling of the guy that ran the art room. This was somebody who actually went on to become one of the Air Force's leaders as a member of the Senior Executive Service. And that's the reason I'm not allowed to use his last name, in discussions or in my book.
Now, 40 years is a long time, and now this book is out. Before we continue, have you been contacted? Has anybody told you to chill out?
Well, let me answer that in 2 ways. The first thing I did is I found out where Corvette Al lived, and I gave him a phone call. And he said, from now on, we're only going to communicate via the U.S. Postal Service. So I wrote up the narrative as I best remembered it as our initial walk and my indoctrination with the story. And I wrote it all up as best I could, and I sent it to him with a cover letter. And he only made one minor change to the entire narrative. He agreed with everything I had written, and he added that I can neither confirm nor deny that we have aliens.
Okay, fair enough. That's the right answer.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe he knew something and he was sending me a message. I don't know. It was just odd that would be the only change that he would make to the narrative.
Okay, so why is he called Corvette Al? And are you in danger of disclosing?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
So
he was Corvette Al because as a young engineer, he bought an old Corvette that was all stress cracked, but he loved that thing. That was his life, and it was loud, and you could see the paint peeling away, and it was an old army green, and he would proudly park it right outside the window where his desk was at, so he could look at it all day long. He could and you'd always see him peeking out the window, and you knew the only reason he was doing it was to look at this much older Corvette, and that's how he got the name Corvette Al.
Now, besides besides Roswell, take us through the history of other UFO or ET evidence that has passed through Wright-Pat.
Well, as you recall, the Air Force had 22 years of UFO investigation in 3 different projects: Sign, Grudge, and Blue Book.
Right.
So there were TV series. There's a Project Blue Book. Everyone on the base knew that those programs were at Wright-Patterson. There was always a hub. Barry Goldwater wanted to visit because of Project Blue Book, and the dignitaries were always coming in. So there was always a buzz, and trust me, there is a network there. Prior to cell phones and emails and everything else that we have now, our instantaneous data collection, there was a network there. And if something happened significant on base, you knew about it within days. So the fact that Wright-Patterson had these UFO investigations was also part of the base personnel DNA. And I think everyone identified with it. It was something that they were proud of. It was something that gave the base notoriety. It was something to chat about around the water cooler.
Right.
So I think that was another big aspect to the UFO Wright-Patterson connection, was having those investigative programs there for decades.
And so was there, okay, I want to go back and finish that thought, but I need to back up. For you, after this conversation happened with Corvette Al, were you comfortable going up around the water cooler and bringing up aliens, and did you do that?
Absolutely. I'm kind of a curious guy. I guess that's why I got an engineering degree. As I made friends and I became comfortable, because, you got to understand, some of these people had worked there for decades. I mean, they if you looked up Wright-Patterson, you'd find their picture in the dictionary. They had been there so long. And they treated me very, very well, because I was a new kid on the block. I was young blood. To a person, everybody at that time, especially early on in my career, when I mentioned, hey, Doug, Al told me that we have aliens in the tunnels. What do you know about this? And they'd go, oh, yeah. Yeah, he goes, and then the Project Blue Book was here, and everyone understands that they brought crash wreckage here, at least from 1947 and maybe beyond. I never got anybody to go, dude, I don't know what you're smoking there at the University of Detroit, but you better stop it. Everyone just said, oh, yeah, sure, of course, like it was an everyday fact.
Did they have... well, they did. I'm just wondering if you knew where it was. That famous Hangar 18, story. Putting that aside, did they have a research area where they were backwards engineering and looking at, the parts and things that were not only brought back from Roswell, but any other crash sites?
The Materials Directorate, for example, which is part of Air Force Research Labs, is celebrating 100 years at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And the Air Force Base was founded in 1917. So if you do the math, they were there from day one. And Air Force Research Labs, which has a huge contingent, thousands of people, their predecessors, all the individual laboratories, propulsion, materials, avionics, et cetera, human factors, have been there for decades, if not a century. So if anything was recovered, wherever it would have been recovered, whether it was German stuff during World War II or, anything that flew after, 1917, including crashed alien craft, Wright-Patterson would have been the most logical place to bring that equipment and those pieces of material and aliens for many, many reasons.
And were you able to identify the real Hangar 18?
I'm so glad you asked that. I have a standing offer, which I am glad to announce here on your show, that the first major conference that invites me to be a speaker, like, say, the MUFON conference or Contact in the Desert or the International UFO Congress, which is happening next week in Fountain Hills, the very first conference of that stature that invites me to be a speaker is going to get the benefit of all the research I've done into Hangar 18.
Interesting. Okay. So what you're saying is you do know.
Well, nobody really knows for sure, because by the time I arrived there in 1973, Blue Book had 4 years to hide stuff, and the 1947 crash had 26 years to hide stuff. So, unless they were terrible at their job, it's pretty difficult for anybody coming in a quarter of a century later and just peeling back the onion, without pains, and everybody having security clearances and the such that would get in the way. But I can tell you that I'm really good at putting peanut butter and chocolate together,
right,
and making my own Reese's cup. And not to give another shameless plug for my book, but if you get a hold of it, you'll see that I have a few interesting theories in there, and I back it up with some pretty solid narrative and photographs where I could. And the same thing with the Hangar 18 story. I've done enough research on it, and I have maps from 1947, 1952. I have aerial photos. I have friends in good places. And I think I could build a pretty good story, at least conjecture-wise, about how Hangar 18 got started and what the possible locations were that created this mythology.
Were you able to, we've got 2 minutes until the break, were you able to get out and explore and, the tunnel system and find out how deep, how many levels down the base goes? Because obviously it does. We know that, as is any military installation. But were you able to get out and explore and check up on some of this mythology and urban legend and to see how the base was laid out?
Absolutely. Every day that I had a chance, and I can tell you we have tunnels from vaults and tunnels and everything, but you're pretty much locked out on the first step. You'll see the door, and you'll see a hallway full of vaults, and you'll talk to somebody who's been in there, and they might give you a little bit of insight. But unless you have the need to know, you're not going to see anything but a locked door or people going in and out of a vault. It's just they're professionals. So the fact of the matter is, one would have to be surprised if we didn't have tunnels and vaults and all the permutations thereof, because of the work that's being done there, and it's the largest R&D facility in the world for the Air Force. So, yeah, sure, we have all that stuff, but only if you have the need to know do you get to see it.
And what was we've got 60 seconds, so just really quick. As a double E there, what was your job? What did you actually do?
Well, early on, we would take the designs of senior engineers and we would build circuit boards, and we would make the circuit boards and we would test them, and then they would be incorporated into a larger system. So early on, one of my tasks as a co-op student was to design and develop and build a board that eventually got launched in a satellite.
Okay, I get it. I totally get it. Totally cool. I did that very thing too as well, but it's not about me. It's about you, Raymond. And we're going to jump into the book right after this short break. Our guest tonight, Raymond Szymanski. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. We're going to talk about his book, 50 Shades of Grays, right after the break. Stay with us.
Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Kat Deely, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're of the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hard shell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129 and use the promo code JCRTWS and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tepe.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies.
I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. I went from being able to work 14, 16 hours a day with no problem to where I could barely walk a block to the store. I went on to the phytonutrients about 6 months ago, and within a couple of months, my medical doctor had cut my prescriptions down in a little bit smaller dosage. The next time I went back a month later, I walked into the doctor's office and he says, "My gosh, what's happened to you? You don't even look like the same person." He looked at my legs and the swelling had gone down. My blood pressure was down. The venous stasis ulcers that I had had on my legs for the last 4 or 5 years because of the poor circulation were all healed, and I'm feeling far better.
The new challenge will allow you to receive 2 months of Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies free. And we'll even ship them to you free. Call now for details. Call 1-800-2468-751. Or go online to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code TALK.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Raymond Szymanski, spent 40 years at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as an electrical engineer. He's got a new book out. It is called 50 Shades of Grays, Evidence of Extraterrestrial Visitation at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and Beyond. And this portion of Fade to Black is brought to you by River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Just go to the River Moon Coffee banner right there at jimmychurchradio.com. Click on it. Use the promo code F2B blend, and you're going to get 15% off of your next order. All right, let's get back to it. Raymond, have you now seen anything strange in the skies? Have you had your own UFO experience?
Absolutely.
What happened?
Well, the very first one was back in around 2009, and I was up in Michigan, and I like to use the Heavens Above website, and it shows you where all the satellites are going to be and what their brightness is, and it tells you when a space station is going to come over. So I was looking for it was classified as a spy satellite. It was a Air Force reconnaissance satellite, and I was watching it come into view, and there it was in the western sky, about 45 degrees, and then suddenly I noticed that this little point of light that was a satellite was accompanied by 2 large, brilliant white lights that were about 50 times the brightness of the satellite, and they were keeping pace precisely with the satellite. One was nearly directly below it, and the other one was below it and a little bit in a trailing pattern. And I watched it go across the sky for about 20 seconds until it disappeared behind some trees. So that was a long distance sighting in about July of 2009. And then in December of 2011, I was coming home from a therapy appointment because I had had an accident nearly a year prior to that. And I was within a mile of home. I saw something catch my eye through the moonroof of my car. And when I looked down, I saw just the back end of what looked like a 60s era Chevrolet with the triple lights on it, except there were about 5 lights on it, the round lights, and they were reddish in color. And I got about a 7 or 8 second view of a craft 200 feet in front of me and about 75 feet off the deck going into the cloud bank, which that day was no more than 60 or 70 feet off the ground.
Oh,
and
wow.
I watched this thing silently slip into the clouds.
Wow. The Air Force reconnaissance satellite sighting, were you using night vision? How were you watching it?
No, the magnitude was like a 3 or a 4. I can't remember which direction the magnitude works, but it was easy to see with the naked eye. It was crystal clear morning. It was about 4:30 in the morning. I was up early to have like a 7 o'clock tea time that day, and I just went out to get some fresh air. And this thing was coming across the sky, and it wasn't until it took me a second to realize that there were 3 objects all moving together, 2 of them extraordinarily different than the satellite itself.
Yeah, what does that tell you when you see something like that? Because I've seen similar things too as well. What does that tell you?
Well, at first I thought it might be a coincidence that the space shuttle or, we had the something else up there that was nearby, and it just happened to be, maybe 100 miles apart, but they happened to be crossing the sky at the same time. So obviously it was unusual, but I went to heavens above and I saw where the space shuttle was and where the space station was, and they were nowhere in the area. So that ruled them out as being those 2 bright objects I saw. I have no idea what they were.
Yeah,
I couldn't speculate.
Yeah, possibly the X-37B. I'm speculating here, but it possibly could have been that, which would have been just as extraordinary as just a UFO, too.
But it was so far away, it was just lights in the sky at that point.
Right. Incredible. Okay. The title, 50 Shades of Grays. How did you arrive at that?
Just clearly banking off of the very famous novel, and I was having a discussion with my younger son, and just in the discussion I said, hey, I was going to call it, have you heard about our aliens? Because that's what Corvette Al had said to me, and that was the seminal moment in my appreciation for this whole phenomena. And he said, nah, I'm not really sure I like that. And I have no idea how we got on the topic. One of us said it, and we both looked at each other and said, that's it. 50 Shades of Grays.
With the culture that goes on at Wright-Pat, the cafeterias, taking breaks and so forth. Did you ever hear descriptions of what the aliens actually look like?
Yeah, I think when I would ask folks about it, and they'd go, well, they're little and they're gray, so they would offer some kind of a helpful description. But I don't think it was ever put up for debate. And I'm just guessing that they've got those descriptions, maybe, reading somebody's book, Don Quixote or whoever, came before me and made those descriptions available to everybody. But I don't really think no one ever came forward to me and said, hey, I was there on FTD and I saw the aliens and here's what they look like. That just doesn't happen.
Right, and I totally get that. What about how they were kept? Were they frozen? Were some of them alive? What did you find out?
Well, from the literature and from the scuttlebutt, they were both dead aliens and live aliens. They were brought to the base. The live aliens were quickly tucked away somewhere. The dead aliens were used for research, and then they were stored. But I reference a situation in the book, and I posit that when we were finished with the scientific aspects of the deceased aliens, we would probably treat them the way that we would like our own astronauts to be treated should they perish on the planet of some far distant civilization. And sure, yeah, they're going to look them over and they're going to do some scientific research on them. But when they're done, we would respectfully here on planet Earth, we would inter them in the ground.
Right. And that, any idea where they are buried, and I'm sure, just like you describe, that they gave them, a military burial.
Right. Well, there are a handful of places. And again, another shameless plug. I do cover that in the book, but I'll be happy to cover it now. There was a Chapel 1, which was built in the 1940s. It was a wooden structure. There's actually a newspaper article that I found that stated that one of the unknown cemeteries on Wright-Patterson was next to Chapel 1. It was printed by somebody. I don't know where that announcement came from, but it was actually published in a newspaper, and I have a photocopy of that. Well, Chapel 1 was recently destroyed, and all that ground was all reworked, and it's now sodded, and there it sits, an empty little field. So that's clearly one possibility, because it wasn't a tombstone-marked grave, yet somewhere somebody had discovered that there was a graveyard there, but you couldn't see it from the surface. So that's one good place. Right next to the Gate 1 in Area A/C now, they keep renaming the areas, is the Fairfield Cemetery. And there are hundreds of graves there that predate World War II. That would have been a natural place to put it. There's actually a cemetery with 8 graves that, believe it or not, sits right next to the campus of the Foreign Technology Division, which is the folks that had Project Blue Book.
Right.
It's literally within feet of their parking lot.
That's nuts. That's a good place. 8 too. That's a. Do you have any idea? Again, through the scuttlebutt, how many bodies were transported from Roswell to Wright-Pat?
No, but if I could be permitted to finish up the last graveyard.
Sure.
There is a big bump on a hill in Area B, and when it was researched by archaeologists, they deemed that there were human remains from the ancient Adena culture. That goes back 3,000 years. And when they did a non-destructive survey with some magnetic resonance machines, they discovered that there are 2 large pieces of metal in there that are about 20 inches by 20 inches. Now, the ancient Adena culture never had anything larger than a copper axe head. And unless this axe head was 20 inches on a side,
right,
you have to wonder, either it's not an ancient Adena burial site, or the machine malfunction, or somebody who's 4 foot tall and might have a big head and almond eyes would easily fit in a case that's 20 by 20 if it were laid in the ground vertically.
Right, right. Wow, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The Foreign Technology Office. Let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
The just the name, right? Just stirs all kinds of thoughts. But obviously, a Russian satellite or something like that was recovered, or an airplane for that matter. That's foreign technology too, as well. That will be brought there. But everything falls under that heading, right?
Absolutely.
And so. Again, I want to go back. I love the culture. I love the scuttlebutt. The water cooler stuff. Those guys in that office, in the Foreign Technology Division. Did anybody ever, just talk about, alien research? And I'm sure that they did. Did you ever hear anything over the years?
To a person on Wright-Patterson, it's in the culture. So you're going to hear that from anybody. I've known people through the years that worked in Foreign Technology Division. Some worked there for 30 years. Some worked there for longer. Some are currently working there. And interestingly enough, one of the newbies there, who happens to be a friend of a son, he's a young man. They were restructuring some of the heating and cooling, and they were banging on the walls and they were tearing out metal, and it was making just this terrible noise. And when the young man asked his senior office partner, what was making the noise, he said, it's the aliens in the basement.
Oh, say that again. Say that again.
When all this noise was going on, and they were working on the heating and cooling systems, and apparently they were restructuring or, adding stuff to the air ventilation. The young engineer asked the senior engineer, what is that awful noise? And the senior engineer, of course, knowing the history, said, it's the aliens in the basement.
And, okay, tongue-in-cheek, right? But there's something to that.
Well, yeah, tongue-in-cheek, because I don't know how long the young man's office partner has been there. But again, clearly to this day, it's still in the DNA. The story's never going to go away. You're indoctrinated one way or another, and perhaps this was one way of indoctrinating, the friend of a friend of a son of a friend kind of thing. But it still happens today.
The compartmentalization that goes on, and it has to, that has to exist. That is part of what occurs, especially at a base with this kind of research. But it seems that it's been a little bit of a leaky ship too over the years, because it has gotten into popular culture. We know what Wright-Patterson is there for now. Do you think that is part of the civilians that maybe have leaked, just because too many people talk? Could it be part of the military? But nobody actually knows everything, right? Everybody knows little slices of what they're exposed to. Is that why it's gone into popular culture like it has?
Well, Project Blue Book was very public. They had collected well over 12,000 reports in the 22 years. They did some investigation. Most of it was public relations. They were just trying to keep the public calm down. They did look into some things. J. Allen Hynek looked at a few cases. And I am absolutely positive that everybody on the base through those years was well aware of what FTD was doing with Projects Grudge, Sign, and Blue Book. So it was unavoidable that the Air Force was publicly interested in this phenomena. And I would guess that you probably had a handful of people who actually knew what they had and knew the scientists that little pieces might have been given to, and said, hey, look, we can't tell you where we got this thing, because it could have been from a spacecraft, it could have been from a Russian satellite, it could have been from anything. Look at this metal and tell me, do an isotopic analysis on this metal. We want to know the isotopic ratios of the nickel, the cadmium, and pick another element. And the guy puts it to the test, and he goes, here's the results. And the person takes the results and says, you never had this material, you never did this test. And of course, he knows nothing more than he was given this piece of metal. So he's never really sure where it came from, but he did his job and he handed off the results. And now the guy who took the metal to the materials directorate, he goes back and hands it to somebody, and maybe even though that he handled the material, he doesn't know where it came from. He was just the go-between.
Right.
So it very compartmentalized, very structured, and I would think only the top of the food chain is going to know what the real story is.
Now, you being a double E and working with circuit boards, and which is something I've done over the years too as well, and I know the process and I know how it's done. I worked at Bell Labs when I was a kid, and I don't need to say any more than that, because you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Did you ever get the feeling that our leaps in technology and the designs of circuit boards and processors and how that stuff was laid out, certainly we were at the forefront of all of that. Do you think that this did come from ET technology, that this was alien technology that we were exposed to and allowed us to figure things out faster and better?
That is a great question. And it's only a great question because I have the answer. I did research this, and a gentleman, his name is also Ray. I had actually backfilled him on staff when he left. Is a good friend, and he became the historian. And he was actually doing research in the Sensors Directorate role in advancing microelectronics. And we actually had one of the first contracts with Texas Instruments and got them to go from these globs of solder and wire, which they said was a transistor, to the early T²L technology, which, Texas Instruments, was huge early on with creating some of the first series of solid-state components. I happen to have the privilege of talking to Dr. Bill Edwards, who ran the microcircuit development division for whatever instance of the laboratory. It might have been the avionics lab then, or still the sensors directorate. And I asked him exactly that question. I backfilled him with the Colonel Corso book and everything. Mm-hmm. And I was hoping he would say, "You're absolutely right. That's how we got from A to Z." And he said, "Well, I don't know much about this Corso thing, and I don't know, much about what my contractors might have gotten from the Corsos of the world." But he said, "From my perspective, I don't think it happened that way, because I was there in the beginning, and I was there when transistors were coming forward, and I know what it took to go from there and create all those processes and all those tools and everything to get us to solid state components like, T²L technology." So I didn't get a vote in my favor because I was hoping he would say, "Oh yeah, that's it, and I'm swearing you to secrecy." Dr. Edwards said, "I don't think it happened that way." So we got a vote against what probably you and I both hope would have been the truth.
But he was aware of it. I mean, it's interesting how he didn't know anything about the Corso book, and he may not have. But also that answer was a way to steer away from that thought, so possibly you wouldn't repeat it in the future too as well. And that would make sense to me. But it sounds to me like he knew exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah, but I think he was saying, "Ray, I have no evidence that the transistor came about because Corso gave them stuff that was recovered from Roswell, right, and they reversed engineered it." Now, it looks like it, but Bill Edwards told me he found no evidence for that to be true. Do I believe him? I believe he believes what he knows, but I haven't done the research to determine if his belief has any foundation.
And how do you feel about it? I mean, because being a double E, the thing that I tripped on, because I did the film work for Circuit Paths, right? And I know what it takes, the process to create a multi-layered board and solder through holes and all of that stuff, right? I did that. And when you look at where we went from in the early 60s to where we were by 1970, 71, 72, big leaps in circuit design. And I went after not only Corso's book, but just the thought of recovering ET craft, and you're exposed to it. You don't know what this stuff does, right? But if you see it, then you get the idea of moving forward. It's implanted in your mind. It can be done. And that's where I think the successes came, because they came rapid and they came very, very fast.
I think there would be some foundation for that type of speculation, but that is not an area that I've researched, and I really hate speculation. I'm a double E. I think I'm a pretty solid researcher. I won't say it if I haven't studied it and I can convince myself that it's one way or the other. So I would say that there's the possibility exists. I think Corso had the credentials. He was where he said he was. He was in the right place at the right time. He had the right connections. Whether any of it is true or not, I honestly don't know. But I would say there's a good possibility that it is true.
Now, we're going to head towards a break right here.
Sure.
You were employed still at Wright-Pat when Corso's book came out, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Now, that book was revolutionary, it was top seller, all of that. Everybody in the country was reading it. Were people starting to talk about this at Wright-Pat? Did you see people carrying the book around?
I did not.
Okay.
No, everybody had the Air Force UFO identification chart in their office. And the younger the Air Force officer, the more you knew that he would have that in his office. That was kind of the badge of honor.
Wait. The UFO identification chart. Tell me about that.
Yeah, the Air Force UFO identification chart has everything on it. It has rockets on it. It has the Millennium Falcon. It has the Star Trek ship on it. And underneath every one of those objects, it has classic disc-shaped UFOs. And underneath every one of those, it says weather balloon, weather balloon, weather balloon, weather balloon. And then the picture of the weather balloon has the identification swamp gas. And that was in every office.
Now that is telling, right?
Absolutely.
Did you have it in your office?
Absolutely. So it was really cool because then you knew who you could talk to about the subject. That was kind of like, in the 60s, if you want to know who was really cool, the hippies, they wore their long hair. Well, it was because you knew they were one of you. And it was the same thing with this Air Force UFO identification chart. You knew you could saddle up to somebody's desk and go, hey, I heard this, and then they wouldn't call you crazy.
Now, when they brought in, we have 2 minutes here. When they brought in foreign technology, whether it was, a MiG-25 or a Russian satellite or some Chinese thing or ET, how did they do that? Did they bring it in by plane? Did they shut the base down? Did they shut the streets down? Was it transported and covered up? How does that occur? Because there's also, foreign satellites taking pictures all day long of Wright-Pat. How did that happen?
Well, they have huge airplanes. They can put tanks in there. So if they've got a busted up spacecraft, that's a piece of cake. And they have a set of hangars on the far side of the base where there's literally nothing but the hangars and a few other support buildings. So you could bring it in any time of day, bring it into the hangar. Nobody but the flight crew and those people who were supposed to be there would see it. And no big deal. And then, especially on a weekend when you're dealing with a skeleton crew and everyone's, off having their picnics and stuff, be a piece of cake. Whatever would fit in a C-5 or whatever their biggest cargo plane was at the time, it would be no problem to bring it into any one of the 600 buildings.
Now, just between you and I, did you ever see like a Russian MiG or a Chinese plane or anything like that? Did you ever see anything like that?
Yeah, there's a picture of it in my book.
And what was it?
It's a MiG.
Which one? I'm an airplane guy.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. It's sitting out in front of the Foreign Technology Division building.
I have the book here, so I will have to go and reference that. I didn't see the picture. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Raymond Szymanski. We're talking about his book, 50 Shades of Grey. He spent 40 years at Wright-Pat. More with Raymond right after this short break. We're going to talk Men in Black when we come back. Stay right there.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oh, fall. My favorite time of year. Cooler temperatures and, well, let's be honest, layers. Lots and lots of layers. Look, I get it. We all have that favorite hoodie. Matter of fact, I've got a few favorite hoodies. You should wear yours. Enjoy it. I do. But I stay focused on my health year-round. And for me, I take Nature's Youth RSF from nature'syouth.com. Nature's Youth RSF from nature'syouth.com. I eat right, control my portion sizes, still maintain a commitment to regular fitness, and I get plenty of rest, and I take Nature's Youth RSF. It's okay to cover up your beach body for a few months, but don't just forget about it. Nature's Youth understands exactly what it means to provide top-quality health products, and Nature's Youth customers not only improve their health, they know they're also providing their body with the right nourishment to maintain peak performance levels and fight the aging process. So layer up and get started today with Nature's Youth RSF. naturesyouth.com. Simple to use, even simpler to order. Go to naturesyouth.com. That's naturesyouth.com.
I have actually been on Balance of Nature for a year now. I have MS, and I recently had an MRI. This is the first year that I've had a stable MRI, so I'm thrilled. When I have an MRI with MS, usually there are glowing spots that come through, which is damage on the nerves in my brain and my spinal cord, and when they're glowing, it means they're active. And then my last MRI, they pulled it up, and I honestly couldn't believe that it was my MRI. There was nothing glowing. And in fact, the dark spots were shrinking. They were healing. And the doctor actually said to me, I think we're in remission. I was so happy. I had no idea that that could be my reality.
The new challenge will allow you to receive 2 months of Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies free. And we'll even ship them to you free. Call now for details. Call 1-800-246-8751. Or go online to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code TALK.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Rhys Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Very simple. Our guest tonight, Raymond Szymanski. We're talking about his book, 50 Shades of Grey. Spent 40 years at Wright-Pat as a double E. And before we get to that, we have some breaking news that happened during the show tonight. Trump's national security advisor, Michael Flynn, has resigned amid reports about him speaking with the Russian ambassador, talking about sanctions, and then turn around and lied to Trump and administration officials that he didn't discuss any of that kind of stuff. And he was caught, and now he is gone. There you go. Pretty crazy world we live in today, huh, Raymond? All right. All right. Look, I'm apolitical, man. I don't go on either side of the fence, but Washington, D.C. is just a place that flips me out, man. It just flips me out. Every day is just something new coming out of there, and I'm never, ever, ever surprised anymore. I'm just not surprised. So, getting back to this, when we talk about Men in Black, I'd ask you at the very beginning of the show, have you been approached? And I know that after a book like this comes out, things must be going on in your life. And when we talk about those things, the Men in Black always comes up. Now, for you, the question is direct. How do you feel about the Men in Black now?
Well, as I documented in 50 Shades, I actually had 2 encounters with a man in black on Wright-Patterson on the campus of an intelligence agency.
I'm loving it already. Tell us about the first encounter.
Foreign Technology Division, which is now NASIC, National Air and Space Intelligence Center, its building, parking lot, road, etc., parallels the 10th hole at Prairie Trace Golf Course, which is one of Wright-Patterson's 2 18-hole courses. And one day when I was tooling down the fairway, I hit the ball down the left side closer to the parking lot area of FTD, former FTD. And lo and behold, there was a gentleman who was dressed exactly like the classic Man in Black.
Yeah. What happened next?
Well, he was sitting in the shade there. It was probably late May, and he had a smartphone that he was dealing with. So I just couldn't resist. I went up and I said, hey, I just can't help but think that you've got the black hat and the black coat and the black tie and shoes and everything, and you're literally feet from FTD. Are you the man in black? So he looked at me like I was out of my mind, and he just shook his head no. And so I pressed him a little bit, and I said, look, it's hot out here. You got the hat thing going. Why would you wear the hat? And he pulls the hat off in kind of like a ta-da, and he was bald, and he had the most unusual color skin.
What color?
It was more olive than anything.
Right.
And when I told this to one individual who interviewed me, he goes, hey, the dude was probably just Italian.
Right.
But it wasn't. And his head looked normal, but there was no hair on it. And with the hat on, it looked like his face had a nice tan. But when he took it off, it was a very unusual color. So he begged off. He said, no, I'm not. And about a month later, almost exactly 4 weeks later, I'm playing golf again. I see him in pretty much the same spot. I engage him again in conversation, and I actually ask him if I can take his picture for my book.
And?
He declines by saying that wouldn't be a good idea in this environment, and he points to the building, to FTD, meaning like, dude, I'm an intelligence officer here, and you're asking to take my photograph?
Right.
So he said, I don't think it'd be really a good idea. So I said, well, I could sell a lot of books if I had a picture of a man in black in it, and I'll cut you in.
And I'm picturing like one of the Blues Brothers out there in the humidity, right?
His picture's in my book.
Is it a uniform? I mean, they know the stories, right? They know, but it's just really funny. Is it a uniform? Is that the vibe that you get?
Well, I've had 2 distinct encounters. If you count him as one, I had a gentleman dressed as a man in black in a local restaurant that I discovered was taking photos of me while I was eating, and he had his camera down below the table.
Wow.
But there's no way he could actually do anything with it down there, but it was clearly facing in my direction, and the only thing that I could conclude from that is he was taking my photograph or filming a video of me or something. But again, he was dressed, hat, coat, tie, everything. I don't know if he was. I actually confronted him on my way out the door, and he told me he was a fundraiser.
A fundraiser?
Yeah, he told me he was a fundraiser for a local university, and he looked more like a man in black or somebody who was running a funeral parlor.
But he was wearing the uniform, right?
He was wearing the uniform, and he was definitely taking my picture with his smartphone.
And he said that he was a fundraiser. What about his skin?
Well, looked pretty normal.
Right.
Looked pretty normal to me, but nobody dresses like that. Who dresses like that? And if it was somebody just messing with me, it's okay, because I don't live in that paranoid world. I mean, if they're going to get their kicks by coming into a restaurant dressing like a man in black and sitting right in front of me and then, scare me by taking my picture, go for it. It's, if you're making a good living at it, have fun. I'm good. But I just found it unusual that this happened shortly after my book was released.
Right. And so did you ask him what fundraiser were you connected to that he needed to shoot you for the fundraiser? Were you that aggressive?
No, I was just eating a dinner in there and having a beer, and I saw him doing that, and I wanted to talk to him before he left. So, I saw the pace that I was going at. I was going to finish before him. I went up to him and I start talking to him, and I let him give me the story, and I just let it go.
What kind of car was he driving?
I don't know, because I left first.
Oh, okay. Man,
he was still sitting there, but I can tell you that I took his picture twice when he wasn't looking.
Right. There you go. Now, what about have you had any other strange encounters like this with the Men in Black, or, cars out in front of your house? Do you feel followed? Your phones? Do you feel surveilled?
No, but one time on base, I did see an individual pass me as I was leaving the gate. He was behind me, probably for a mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile, coming from one side of the base to the other. I didn't think anything about it. And then when we exited the gate, it splits. I was going off to the right onto the main highway. He was going up over onto the little road there. And he was clearly in the uniform. So 3 times I've had encounters. Twice I actually talked to the individuals, and the 3rd time was just, maybe he was just early Halloweening it. I don't know.
And why, let me ask you this directly, Raymond. Why would you take the chance in writing a book like this? Why would you do that? Because now you're completely exposed.
Well, first of all, I haven't revealed any secrets, the best that I know of, because the government says there's no defense significance in this, and UFOs don't exist. And so how can I reveal something that doesn't exist? So, and it's never my intent. This is my Hillary Clinton caveat. It's not my intent to reveal secrets. It's my intent to add to the world of ufology, get people to think about it, get people interested in the topic who ordinarily wouldn't even visit it or come close to it, and then inspire people to take their own quest like I did and search for evidence and convince themselves, and then maybe they can add something substantial to our understanding of this phenomena.
And with after 40 years at Wright-Pat, and I ask this question to nearly every guest that I interview, after 40 years at Wright-Pat, and you're sitting in front of the Supreme Court, and you need to push a piece of evidence, and you only get to select one, and you push something across the table for the evidence of our contact with ET, what would that piece of evidence be?
I think it would have to be the photograph of the Man in Black.
Why?
Well, to me, it clearly indicates that they're still interested in the topic and that the individuals are in the proper building. I mean, Men in Black have to be somewhere during the day, don't they? And why not in the building that is filled with that kind of work and those kind of people? And the fact that, I read people pretty well, and the conversation I had with them, led me to the conclusion that if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
Right. And with the Air Force making their official announcement that they were closing Blue Book and they were no longer investigating UFOs, do you believe that to be true, or does this investigation continue?
Well, absolutely not. If you just look at the Rendlesham Forest incident, there was Air Force guys at Woodbridge Royal Air Station in southeastern England, 1980. This black glass triangular craft lands in the middle of the Rendlesham Forest. Jim Penniston, John Burroughs, and Ed Cabensag go out there. Penniston actually touches it. 2 days later, Colonel Halt, the deputy base commander, sees it, writes a letter to the Ministry of Defense, and officially documents the fact that yea, verily, me, Colonel Halt, and 24 other people saw UFOs sending beams down at our feet, beams down at the weapons storage area, which reputedly had nuclear weapons. We saw craft break into 5 separate pieces and scatter through the forest. And all of the evidence. And on film, Penniston says, the OSI came in and gave me a drug-fueled interrogation. And the OSI happens to be the Air Force investigative arm. And he names them by name.
Right.
So, if the guy who got shot up with the drugs says this happened, I would have to tend to believe him. And if that's true, then clearly the UFO thing is not of great disinterest. They're still interested in what's going on.
Is there, back to Wright-Pat, are there sections of the base that are secret, off limits, like gates within the gates?
If they're there, they're not obvious. For the most part, you've got the perimeter fences. Many of the buildings, you have to have an ID to get in. And once you get in, then you've got to get past a vault and another gate. And, there are so many levels of security that, that's probably just not necessary.
What you've referenced this a few times tonight when you say the vault. You've got to get what do you mean when you say that? What's a vault?
Well, just a gigantic safe. It could be a 12-foot by 12-foot where they store documents. It could be a 24-foot by 24-foot where guys like me are in there putting together printed circuit boards and testing classified circuitry. It could be 100 by 100 where, they have dozens of people, or it could be like FTD, which is basically, a building that's a vault in essence. So it's any place that's super secure and you've got a combination lock to get in and maybe, a few other things that are required to gain entry.
When you were there, were they was the discussion of disclosure or the possibility of bringing this stuff public, was it ever discussed?
Not at all. Never.
Do you think that disclosure is a possibility?
I can't see how. I mean, if you think about it, President Ford tried, failed. President Carter failed. Reagan failed. Clinton failed. Obama failed. Everybody, everybody who's wanted to reveal that has failed to do it. And think about it. When President Clinton got in, he said, there's really only two things I want to know. Who killed Kennedy and do we have aliens?
Right.
And he couldn't find out. Now, we're talking a very powerful person, very powerful family, well-connected. It comes down to need to know. If you don't have the need to know, you will not be told. And so I know there's a lot of this fanfare. You've got the one rock star claiming that he's got all these contacts and he's getting all this information. I just don't see it. I don't see the motivation for these people to tell him. I don't see why they would tell him. It just doesn't make sense. This is not the way that I think they would go about doing disclosure.
But yet at Wright-Patterson, with this culture that is there, it seems like it's openly discussed. Why wouldn't the president or anybody else, or like Tom DeLonge, just go to Wright-Pat and hang out and try to find out your own information? That's I'm so because
he wouldn't get in the front gate to begin with. Okay, most likely he wouldn't even be let in the front gate. He'd have to have a sponsor. The second thing is he probably wouldn't get into any buildings that had security in it. And right there is two failures. There's a third strike probably right around the corner. And imagine this. In my opinion, there's probably a handful of people in the country that know the truth. And I'm talking about the proof, not just the evidence. Okay, and they could all be in one building. Who knows? Maybe there's 12 people, the majestic 12. But beyond that, the knowledge is limited. And I don't care what building you get into at Wright-Pat. Again, these people have had since 1947 to hide this stuff. They would have to be terrible at their job not to have hidden it from people who shouldn't see it. And that's what makes me so suspicious when somebody comes out and saying, yeah, they're just laying their hearts out to me and I'm going to do this, big disclosure thing. I just don't see it.
What about Area 51? Is that something that is, for an interdepartmental type of thing? Area 51 and its connection to ET technology. And Wright-Pat, is Area 51 discussed and the ET connection over at Wright-Pat?
I don't really think I heard a lot of that. I think everyone who did anything programmatic-wise at Area 51 had a great deal of respect for it. They never referred to it as Area 51. But, we knew that certain programs were going to go out there to do testings or to do, have a meeting or something like that. And I would think that, after Wright-Pat got its initial look at things, or through the years, there's supposed to be dozens of crashing and they were inspected. They might have passed through Wright-Patterson, but we don't have all the equipment. We don't have all the scientists. We don't have all the contracts, nor all the money. And I would think that some of the stuff might be parted out, even to test it. Bob Lazar said, hey, we had the sport model and we were flying this thing. You wouldn't fly that at Wright-Patterson. So something like that would probably wind up in an area with a reputation like Area 51.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a real great point. And the other thing I wanted to ask you really quick, the United States isn't exclusive to UFO crashes, right? They happen all around the world. Did you ever hear about stuff being brought in from Brazil or South America or maybe Asia, that there was something coming in to the FTD for research?
Only through literature reads and books and conference presentations, but not on the base. It was pretty much limited to, hey, we've got aliens in the tunnels, FTD's doing the work, we know they had the programs there, and that's pretty much where it ended. And how do you like my Air Force UFO identification T-shirt?
What do you mean?
Yeah, they took, what they've done now in the modern day is they have taken that Air Force UFO identification chart where everything is a weather balloon,
right,
or swamp gas, and they now print them on T-shirts, and they wear them on base. Sometimes when they'll have a casual Friday, you'll see people wearing, and in fact, I have a photograph of one. I'm not sure if I put it in a book or not, but.
And the other thing I wanted to ask is this. Were you ever able to talk to somebody or witness that walked by a hangar and saw something, in there, like not necessarily the sport model, but maybe something crashed? Any eyes on anything in any hangars?
I would like to lay that myth to rest. You read stories about people who write books about Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and it's all fourth and fifth hand. It's Joe the plumber had a friend, he was a neighbor and had an electrician. He was let in one day, and oh my heavens, they forgot to cover the alien in the tube, and the electrician got to see it, and he told it to the plumber. Forget those stories. First of all, the authors of those books have never been to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Nobody is going to accidentally see an alien at Wright-Patterson or anywhere else. Whether they're a contractor, rewiring the lab or whatever, that's not the way it works.
And what about guards? Somebody is standing guard here. They know what they're standing guard of, and certainly they witness stuff too as well. Are they that tight-lipped, or does that scuttlebutt get out? A guard, so, I'm
Well, if they were to bring something in, nobody would know what was in the box except, whoever was responsible for it. The pilots wouldn't know. The crew wouldn't know. It's a wooden box. The airmen come along. They bring their trolleys. They move it into a lab somewhere. The guy who's escorting it, he's the only guy that knows. He does whatever is necessary. It's tested. It's brought back out. Again, no one's going to see it accidentally. Most people aren't going to know what it is. And again, only the people at the top are going to know where the proof is.
You want to take some phone calls?
Sure, why not?
Okay, so I'm going to line this up now, let everybody know. I'm going to open up the phone lines now, and we'll take some calls in the next segment. The research that is done on an alien body that would be deceased, what would we gain from that? What were we looking to do? Reproductive systems, how they breathe? What kind of research do you think is going on there?
I think the first thing that they would have done in 1947 is they would have brought them into Building 219. It was the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Regional Hospital. That's where we would have had all the medical supplies. All the doctors would have been there. There's actually a vault in the basement. So if we had to keep something, let's say it was deceased and we needed to keep it overnight, there was a morgue in the basement. On the third floor, there was an operating room. So if we brought in let's say we brought some live ones in and some deceased ones, I think what we would like to try to do is analyze the deceased ones to try to find out how we keep the others alive. What are they made of? What possible nutrition can we supply them? Do they need water? What other kinds of needs do they have, temperature-wise, humidity-wise? We would try to rapidly create an environment to keep those others alive, if not for scientific purposes, but just because, we're the human race, and that's what we do. So I really think they would try to get clues on how to keep these individuals alive rather than, how do we create some virus to kill them? I think that would be the last thing on their agenda.
Let's take a break right here. I've got some calls already lined up, and we'll do that right after the break. Our guest tonight, Raymond Szymanski. We're talking about his book, 50 Shades of Grey. He spent 40 years at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as a double E. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Your phone calls are next. Stay right there.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
PatriotPrepared.com carries the leading brands of storable food from Numana, Legacy, and Heaven's Harvest. Patriot Prepared. Our name says it all. We're dedicated to empowering you to be self-reliant and confident in any circumstance. Whether you want to be prepared in the event of an emergency or you're an outdoor sports enthusiast, PatriotPrepared.com has prepackaged meals and kits for your entire family. Legacy, Heaven's Harvest, and Numana are known for high-quality, great-tasting GMO-free, nutritious food with no chemical preservatives. Simple to prepare, easy to store, gluten-free and organic high-quality nutrition options with a 25-year shelf life. You can't beat the feeling of being food secure when you need it most. So go to PatriotPrepared.com right now to pick up your supply of high-quality storable food for your family, because it makes good sense to be prepared. That's PatriotPrepared.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Would you like relief from muscle pain, headaches, and discomfort to sleep better, have more energy during the day, and just feel naturally amazing? Fibromalic can help. Its blend of malic acid and magnesium can provide pain relief and comfort for those who experience fibromyalgia. It helps your body absorb more oxygen, and it works quickly for a significant reduction in pain within 48 hours, all without a prescription. Ask for Fibromalic at health and vitamin shops or shop fibromalic.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Teppy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. So what you want to do, come hang out over in Twitter. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Hashtag F2BQ is Fade to Black questions. Our guest tonight, Raymond Szymanski. And he spent 40 years at Wright-Pat and as a double E. And before I get to phone calls, now after you've done this and you've written the book, Raymond, and you've done this research, how do you feel about the contact with ET and the fact that it's here? Has it changed you? Because we all have that same question, right? Are we alone in the universe? How are you different today than before you wrote the book?
Well, the book is a result of the quest I took, because that initial introduction many years ago energized me, and I always kept my eyes open and my ears open, and I picked up all these factoids, and then I went and investigated very famous cases. I talked to the people who actually were in Rendlesham Forest, or whose house the UFO that was described in the book sat, or the person who owned the farm where the horses kicked their stalls in because of a famous UFO. And it took me from, it's kind of like when you're doing an engineering project, you think you know something and then you prove it's true, and it's that eureka moment, and you feel this sense of fulfillment and satisfaction. And I think that's what I felt. I didn't feel like that I'd ever been an abductee or a contactee, and I didn't have these, subconscious nightmares that needed to be brought to the surface so I could deal with it. It was this great mystery that I had to prove to myself that, was this just crap I was listening to all those years at Wright-Patterson, or was there really something to it? Was I just being naive? And it turns out that I have this satisfaction. It's a eureka moment. I feel I'm educated, and I've made a decision what I think it's all about, and I just feel this great satisfaction.
Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Raymond. Who's calling?
This is Walt.
Hey, Walt. How are you? Say hi to Raymond.
Hey, how you doing, man? Hey, listen, thank you, Jimmy, for bringing this fellow on, because this is an interesting conversation you have going. I'm 70 years old, and I've been face-to-face with 3 grays. Right face-to-face, came within 2 inches of touching one on the arm. But I'd like to have his take on, he's probably a believer. He's been working 40 years at Wright-Pat. What the heck do they want? And why is the government so hush-hush on this?
Well, I've actually had the chance to hang out with people who have done regressions. My next book is going to be about individuals who've had contact, and I think there's a number of things that they're doing. Probably the most prominent appears to be that they have some sort of a breeding program going. They've harvested eggs, they've harvested semen, they're creating hybrids. If the hybrid looks more human, they'll try to get them incorporated here on planet Earth. If not, they keep them up on a spaceship somewhere or wherever they stay. So to me, it's some type of a breeding program. The second thing that I think I've discovered is that they're observing people who've had contact with radiation. And I don't want to give away all the research I'm doing, but it appears to me that there's a number of contactees that I've talked to that lived close to a nuclear plant that was spewing out radiation, and a whole series of these people have had lifelong contact, and they don't report, the women don't report that their eggs have been harvested. Most of these people, the majority, report that they're being tested as if they're being evaluated health-wise. And I'm just wondering if they're looking out for people who lived in these high-risk nuclear areas, and they're seeing what the impact is after 40 or 50 years.
Okay, that didn't happen to me. I was living on a farm in the middle of Delaware, I mean, it's no electric, no running water, just a real primitive life. And I was only about 8 or 10, and they came in the middle of the night, and I woke up before they came in, and I could see them appear out of thin air, and they just started kind of floating across the floor, and they came within right to my face, and I was sitting up in bed. And I was wondering, have you seen an alien face-to-face?
Absolutely not. And I don't. I hope that never happens.
No, I like to talk to some other people that have seen what I've seen.
Thank you for the phone call, Walt, and be safe out there.
Thank you.
Raymond, a quick question here, really quick. Was it only grays, or were there other types of aliens that were, different species that were talked about at Wright-Pat?
I didn't really hear about the reptilians or the insectoids or anything else until I started going to the International UFO Congress in 2013, and I might have read about it once in a while, but it was only the grays, little green men. That's what they described it as. Although they were little green men, and once in a while you'd hear, well, no, they were gray, but I think it was the mythology of green men was passed along, and they're in the tunnels, so. I think they were just repeating what they heard.
Right. I get that. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Raymond Szymanski.
Yeah, hi, Raymond.
Howdy.
Hey, let me ask you a quick question. You were talking about you didn't know if there was any alien technology that had been used. I'm the biggest believer. Jimmy said that he worked at Bell Labs. I worked for Bell for 38 years. And I watched leaps in technology that I don't believe we had anything to do with. And one of them especially is the modern day chip that's in an iPhone or anybody. So let me ask you one question. When we store data, what physically are we storing, and how exactly is it put there? What is that? Because you have chips that have many, many, many layers, and each one of these layers are 10 atoms thick, and they're all connected. So me working with this type of equipment for years and years, if it was magnetic, we have nothing that's a monopole, so we don't have any way to differentiate a bit. Let's say a bit is one bit of magnet. Well, there's no difference between one magnet and the other. If it's electricity we're storing, we would have to store it in a dielectric chamber. So we're not storing that either. So I believe the technology that you have in your hand right now is way beyond us. We don't have anything that measures a billionth of an inch. Are you kidding? It's absolutely impossible for us to manufacture these chips and have them work. I think we might make them, but we have no idea what the hell we're doing. None. We're just making things, and the technology was given to us. It's my opinion. Just maybe you can add to it.
You are obviously better qualified to make that statement than I am. What I tendered was two things. One, I said it was definitely within the possibilities, although I didn't research it. And the individual that I respect and I know was close to the government's helping companies like TI develop integrated circuits, he claims he doesn't think it's so. So again, I have not fully investigated. I've just touched the tip of the iceberg, and I really appreciate your commentary.
I was really hoping that you could, because I know a lot of geeks, and I can't find a geek alive that can answer that question. They all know how code works.
What
are we storing, and how is it done?
What Bell Labs did you work at?
I didn't work at Bell Labs. I said I worked for Bell. I worked for Southwestern Bell for 37 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you worked for the laboratories.
No. And I worked in special services, so we had the latest and greatest of everything. And when we left the analog world, we went directly to digital, and that's where we made these quantum leaps. I mean, just leaps in technology where we even said, who the hell invented this? Bell Labs didn't invent it. Western Electric didn't invent it. Where did this come from? And all they said is, it works, use it. And that's the way it's been ever since.
Yeah. I tend to agree with that, and I don't want to. And what's your name, by the way?
Cliff.
Thank you, Cliff. First-time caller. Appreciate that, Cliff. Behave out there. Thank you so much. I don't want to take away anything from the very, very smart people that I worked with at Bell Labs. But I don't want to misrepresent what I was exposed to at Bell Labs. I worked for Bell Labs Indianapolis, okay? And there were Bell Labs all over the country, and the flagship ones like Cherry Hill in New Jersey and stuff. I worked at Bell Labs Indianapolis. My job there, I was an artist in ED&D, engineering, design, and development. Time for my little bit of disclosure here. I was just an artist, right? I was hired when I was 18, actually a couple of weeks before my 18th birthday. And I worked with circuit boards. I worked with keypads. I worked with the artwork the A, B, and C that were put on the buttons, right? I was one of the guys that actually did that. But I was able to, at Bell Labs, walk around, hang out with other scientists and engineers and work with them on their projects. And they were very, very bright people, and they were proud of the work that they did there. But as an insider, the one thing that I'm convinced of is the leaps that happened from 1947 and forward were so extreme and so fast, with fiber optics and like he was just talking about, microprocessors and circuit boards and how it happened so quickly. I'm in agreement. I think we saw things and we said, okay, we didn't necessarily know what these things did on alien craft, but once you see it, then you just try to figure out a way to apply that to us. And I think that it occurred, and that's it. If you don't know how to make an airplane fly, right? You don't know anything about that. But if you see an airplane fly by you, well, then, you're going to try to go and figure out how to, because you've seen it done. And that's what I'm referring to here, Raymond. And, you may not know what fiber optics is, right? You see it, and you see, so then you turn around and you try to apply that and make it work. Far too many leaps. We frog leaped over each other since 1947. And that's one of the simplest ways to look at all of this is, well, maybe we just had a little bit of help. That's all.
Well, I think that's possible.
Yes.
Perhaps Dr. Edwards didn't get the full story, and what I understand is that early on Bell Labs was futzing with the transistor, and the problem is that they were doping the substrate with the wrong component, and when they got a chance to reverse engineer what they had gotten from one of the crashes, they discovered that they needed to dope the substrate with arsenic rather than with some other element that they were using. And that was the key breakthrough, because then they could control the flow based upon the voltages that they applied to the component itself. So it's almost as if, we were right on the verge, but we needed a tipping point, and that tipping point was discovering through reverse engineering that we needed to dope the substrate with something different. So again, I say it's completely within the realm of possibilities. I just haven't researched it enough to be definitive one way or the other.
Right. Well, what's up? What's next for you? Are you going to write more books? And also with that, I know that you had said that you would never reveal any secrets, right? But are you suggesting that there are things that you cannot reveal?
Of course. That's why I didn't give you a security oath.
Please continue that thought.
I would never intentionally reveal anything that I knew to be a secret. And the reason is the Air Force gave me a wonderful career. If I had a chance to be 21 again and do it all over again, I would have a Groundhog Day and do it over and over. I work with the best people, the brightest minds. I had the best support. Yes, it was hard work. There was a lot of travel. There's always angst. You're working 20 years out in some cases. You're working on projects far into the future. It's uncertainty. You're failing a lot because that's what you do in a lab. But I would do it all over again. It's a fantastic organization to work R&D for the Air Force. I don't know how it is for the other services, but I actually got my older son. Both of my sons actually worked at the base for a while. We're all double E's. Our undergrad degrees are all electrical engineering, so they're a chip off the old block, and they worked there for a number of years. So they enjoyed it also.
Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Raymond Szymanski. Who's calling?
Hi, Ray. This is Jim from New York.
Hi, Jim from New York. What have you got for Raymond?
Well, I kind of have a what-if statement and get your take on it. Has to do with all the technology that's been given to us, which I believe, and the hybrids coming into the picture. People say if the aliens were going to take over, they would have destroyed us already or whatever militarily. Well, I think they're taking us over from the inside, and we've all heard of terraforming a planet. Well, I think they're technoforming our society to bring it up to their standard, closer to their standards, so when they do take over in so many decades, it'll be, more to their liking, so to speak.
Well, that's kind of a scary thought, Jim. Thank you for giving us a nightmare tonight. I appreciate that.
Okay. Thanks for taking my call, Jim.
Yeah, there you go. What do you think about that, Raymond? That's an interesting, prepping us so the world is a little bit more like them, and they're acclimated, and they can just come in and just operate the way they need to because they've gotten things laid out the way that they want them.
Well, if you read David Jacobs' latest book, Living Among Us,
right?
I think he's written about 5 books on the topic, and he's interviewed 1,500 cases. That's his thesis. That what the gentleman from New York just stated is Dr. Jacobs' thesis. I don't know if he's read his book or not, but very consistent with it. You look at our evolution, there's been claims, you look at the ancient alien guys, the Georgiosuklises of the world and those folks, and they say, how did we get from A to B to C, and there's these leaps and bounds. Look at the pyramids. Are you kidding me? 10,000 years old? We were still living in caves back then. How do we build the pyramids? I think it's all possible. Again, I've been looking at a very narrow slice of this whole phenomena, and I'm very confident in what I know and what I'm getting to know. So I have an open mind, and I certainly think this is within the realm of possibilities. I'd like to ask for a few upgrades if they're doing this thing.
Well, there's one other thing that I think is very glaring, which is this: our Air Force is the only one like that. Our technology, when it comes to aircraft and stealth technology, the designs, the B-2, China doesn't have a B-2. Russia's, long-range bombers still have turboprops. We're the only ones that have this technology. That everything is so far advanced from the technology around the world. How can we? I'm not saying we don't have bright minds and great engineers, and so I'm not suggesting that we do. But certainly, when you look at the B-1 bomber and you look at the F-117 and you look at what we are doing here, nobody else has got this technology. It had to come from somewhere. The idea, just the very ideas that we have, it feels to me like we've got some information that nobody else has got.
It certainly does appear to be that way, but, we've invented a lot of stuff here in this country, and we've plowed this back into, we've taken that capital and we've plowed it back into research. Who has the best university system in the world? The United States of America. So we've set ourselves up for success. And I would not take anything away from the scientists and engineers who have created these things and who've pushed this thing forward. But maybe we got a little bit of help. Maybe we've been engineered. Maybe we got to push. But, it still comes down to the human being.
And black triangles, I've seen them, photographed them. They're out there. The sightings have been everywhere, going back, before the Belgium wave, of course. And they're out there. The black triangles that are seen today, is that us or them? Is that ET visiting us, or do we have some crazy technology that we're just out there testing?
That's another interesting question. I had a encounter with a gentleman while I was training on Wright-Patterson. I'm a runner, do marathons and such. And the gentleman was inspecting one of the airplanes that was sitting outside. I had to engage him in a conversation. He worked in propulsion directorate, and he told me, he said, you know what? We have things out there that you would equate to magic. And I said, well, let's take the Phoenix Lights, where everyone saw this black triangle that was 1.5 miles wide and, 100 yards long, and it blotted out the moon and the stars and the sky. Do we have that kind of magic? And you know what he told me?
What's that?
I got to get a copy of your book. Basically, he was saying, no, we've got some magic, but we don't have a magic where we've got 1.5 miles wide triangle coming across the state of Arizona and parking itself, where it did near the airport and that. So I think if I take him at his word, here's a guy who spent his entire career working propulsion systems for the Air Force, and he's shaking his head going, nope, that's not ours.
And see, what does that tell you? And let me ask you this. What about anti-gravity? Was that a propulsion system that was worked at Wright-Pat?
I can't imagine that it was. And I know there's a lot of theory about that's how spaceships work. They generate their anti-gravity and it pulls them forward and it, does all these things. I can't imagine that they're working anything anti-gravity. But hey, no need to know.
Well, okay.
I have no idea.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. We always talk about disinfo and disinformation, and we're being, our community is being steered in different directions intentionally from the government. Do you ever feel that you are directly or indirectly one of those disinfo guys?
No, actually, the question that I usually get is, do you think somebody is helping you, giving you information, that you're part of the disclosure movement?
Right.
And no one has explicitly said, hey, here's the Holy Grail, run with it, publish it, do whatever. I have had help. If I ask the right question and I'm going in the wrong direction, I might ask a protected source, hey, I'm looking into this. Do you know anything? Do you know anybody? Can you help me? And I've had help. I've had people say, well, why don't you look here and see what you find?
And you were talking about secrets earlier, and I want to thank you before we close out the show here in a few minutes. Thank you for coming on tonight. Absolutely great conversation. Loved every minute of it. So you've got secrets. Is there the reason why you wouldn't disclose that? Is it because of your pension? Is it the safety of your family? Or is that you're just a patriot and that's what you do?
I'm a man of my word, and I told him I wouldn't reveal any secrets, and I intend to keep that promise.
And what about a deathbed confession? Will you give us one of those?
I don't really think I have anything worthy of a deathbed confession. Not yet, anyway. I'll have to see if somebody does eventually slip me a Holy Grail on their deathbed.
Well, what about, okay, I'm going to get something out of you, Raymond. It's my job. The stuff that you can't discuss, does this have to do with aircraft, avionics, propulsion systems, satellite systems, missile technology, or is it ET related?
It has stuff to do with the Air Force general technologies.
Okay. Well, that's a general statement. Oh, Oh man,
you're good at this, but so am I.
Yeah, it's my job, man. It's my job, and it's yours, and you're doing a good job.
It used to be my job.
Well, if I'm making you sweat a little bit, I know that I'm getting close. Well,
not at all. I couldn't be more comfortable. Oh. I'm going to sleep well tonight. It's been a great talk that we've had. I hope you don't mind me telling your listeners I'm going to be out in Los Angeles at the UPARS meeting on the 21st.
Right.
At the Unitarian Church. That's Steve Murillo's group. And on the 24th, I'm going to be with Rick Nelson's group, the Paranormal Research Forum in Lakewood, Colorado. That'll be the 24th.
Now, you're going to love UPARS. It's one of the great groups in the entire country, if not the world, and based right here. I go over there as often as I can. And Steve Murillo runs a really, really great program out there. But what's really cool is you are going to have, 100 people there that night that have questions, and they are there to learn, starving for knowledge, and it's going to be a great experience for you. So have a great time and a great talk when you do come out here. And where can everybody get your book?
At Amazon exclusively. It's you can get the Kindle version, or you can get a soft copy on Amazon. And if they show up at the International UFO Congress next week, I will be sharing a table with Yvonne Smith, and they can purchase it there. Or if they come to the UPARS meeting, or if they come to the Denver meeting, I will have dozens of my books available there.
Have you done any sessions with Yvonne? And if you haven't, would you?
I would, but I'm not a contactee. I'm not an experiencer, and I'm fairly certain of that.
What,
so
that
yeah.
You know of.
Well, even Yvonne has kind of given me a clean slate of health. She said you're not symptomatic of this at all, and your interests are just not in line with what normal contactees and experiencers are interested in. So I'm feeling pretty confident about it, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know. And she's one of the best. So be careful, because she can get you into a trance and you don't even know it. So just remember that. Just remember that. All right. Raymond, thank you so much. Great conversation. Stay in touch with us. And when you get ready for your next book as well, let us know. And then we'll see you when you get out here to Los Angeles. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You got it. Raymond Szymanski, everybody. Do go to Amazon. 50 Shades of Grays. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More of your phone calls next. I'm opening up the phone lines, 323-825-5045. I'm wondering what's going on with my music here. Where's my stuff at? It should be popping up right now. This is Fade to Black. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. This is Fade to Black. Email is Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. More of your phone calls next. I'll be right back.
You are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies.
I had gout in both my knees, and it's gone.
Well, I'm pretty stupid. I should have ordered it 15 years ago. Best thing I ever got in my... It's the most effective product that I've ever bought in my life.
He had eczema on his hand, and it cracked for years. Mm-hmm. He did anything from doctor, every cream, everything. And 3 months on the veggies and fruit, it was gone.
They're just awesome. They keep asking me, what am I doing? I told them what I did with my cholesterol. I had the blood test, right? And it went down 100 points. 262, now it's 162. Everything is just perfect.
Call now to find out how to get your free month's supply of Balance of Nature. Call 800-2468-751. That's 800-2468-751. Call now, 800-2468-751. Or go online to balanceofnature.com.
Use promo code TSL.
Would odors, mold, and mildew describe your basement or crawl space? It doesn't have to be that way. Transform them into a fresh, healthy, usable one with the technologically advanced Wave Moisture Control Units. The computerized operation maximizes moisture control and also expels harmful radon, combustion gases, and numerous other pollutants. Dehumidifiers are old technology that do nothing for air quality and waste energy. Wave units are intelligent, self-monitoring, do not need maintenance, and will save you hundreds in electricity. Wave units are still running effectively over 15 years. They've been tested and installed in public and military housing and by property managers nationwide. Buy a unit now, and if your home is not fresher and drier, you can return it for a full refund for up to 12 months. What have you got to lose? Call now. 1-888-618-WAVE. 1-888-618-WAVE. Or visit mydryhome.com. That's mydryhome.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Opening up the phone lines, 323-825-5045. If you were at Conscious Life Expo this past weekend, give me a call. Let me know what kind of time you had there. 323-825-5045. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. All right, let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black.
Hey, Jimmy, it's Josh.
How are you?
From Texas. It's been a while, man.
How are you, man?
I'm doing good. Really enjoyed the show. I was one of the witnesses in that Stephenville when the UFO
went
over, and they said Walmart. Well, that there were several different sightings and over the period of time, and there was just all different shapes. There's an Officer X, and I know who he is, and the rest, because business I was doing, I was working with the police department, and anyway, he had a drawing of what he saw outside of town, and the first guy that kind of looked like a disc, and then you had one that looked like a cube. And it was the guy downtown, and then he's out by this horse arena, and he draws what looks like a Romulan warship. And like, it looks like straight out of old Star Trek.
Right.
And but I was wondering. I just got in kind of late and was listening to the show, and about the Wright field. I was wondering. Well, was the question asked about the Jackie Gleason and Nixon about the ride out there, Shawnee and the alien?
That's still, to me, that's one of the coolest stories that we have out there. What happened with Gleason in Florida with Nixon. And I believe that happened. And I'll tell you why I do. it's too crazy of a story to make up. If you're going to make up, and you're going to start a rumor, or you want to get something going and create some urban legend, you just wouldn't go there, right? And I just think that it happened the way that they did, and they say that it did. The other thing about Nixon is Nixon was a notorious drinker, and he had his drinking buddies, probably, and Gleason was one of those guys too. I just think that it went down the way that it went down. Those guys were drinking, and it was like, hey man, you want to go see, you want to go see something cool? Yeah, let's go. And I think it went down the way that they say it did.
Well, Gleason built that house.
Yes, he
up
did.
North, the shape of a UFO, and it sounds credible. As crazy it is, it just sounds so credible. I'll tell you this real quick, and this is about a triangle. This was when the Stephenville thing was going on. I had a mama and two little girls come in with them, and one was about 6, the other was about 8. And they said, yeah, we saw the UFO. We saw the triangle over a barn, over a horse barn. And mom was talking about it, and the little ones spoke up and said, yeah, and it had 3 lights on the back of it. 2 red ones and a green one. And it just like just blew my mind. I mean, out of the mouth of babes, I mean, she's telling what she saw. She said it was triangular, and I know the constable that's out there. It's got tapes. Gatang, I can't think of his first name, but there were so many reports, and I mean. This actually went on for about a year. It really was not. It kind of made it sound like it just was one day.
Right.
There were sightings for a year, and the Crawford Ranch and all that, is out there. I met the man that got the FOIA request for them to admit to having the F-16s come over.
Right.
I got his card, his business card. He gave it to me. He kind of gave me this lecture on it, and he said, he's about 75. He says, make no mistake, young man, this was an extraterrestrial event that took place here. I go and pull him up on the internet, and he had his resume out there, and it's like he worked for NASA, and he's working with audio and sounds, and I took it like where like how they trace somebody that's been kidnapped, and they would listen in the background like, okay, we hear a train or something,
right? That
type of stuff, and that's the what I got in my head, that kind of sort of thing.
Right.
Listening, so
yeah.
But anyway, it was a great show, and it's been a minute. I hope you're doing great, man. Rock on, and I'll keep on listening. I'll tell everybody about you, brother.
All the best, Josh. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a great night. Look, one of the things that strikes me about Raymond and Wright-Pat, to have, I have no reason to not believe that it went down the way that it went down, that the culture is there. The ET connection is there to Wright-Pat, right? And coworkers, once you're in, and you're a worker there and you're a coworker, you're going to be immersed in that culture, right? And things are going to get discussed. And if ETs are what the base is about, then that's the culture, and it's going to get brought up and it's going to get talked about because it's trust, right? You're a coworker. And to have it happen right away because you're taking a tour, hey, man, have you heard about our aliens? And you say, no, oh, well, that's what's going on here, because that's part of the culture. I'm sure that it went down just like it did. But I find that just so fascinating that you could sit and openly discuss it or talk about it and know that it's there. But if you want to go beyond that, again, to have everything compartmentalized, it's the way that it is. And it's not just, see, this is the thing. Technology or secrets that are handled in that fashion, it's not just ET. It's anything. It's anything that needs to be secret. Look, I'll give you an example. If you have you work at a company that is building electronic equipment, and you're in competition out there, and you are, because there are other companies out there that are building similar things to yourself, and you have a new product that is getting ready to come out, and you've been working on it for a year or 2 years, and it's the evolutionary piece to another piece that you are building, and it's the next latest, greatest thing. You are not inside of that company. Not everybody in the company knows about it, because people are going to talk, and the competition is going to find out about it. That's just the way that it is. I have worked at companies where that is exactly the case, where I've been walking down the hall. Wait a minute, what is that? Ooh, you're not supposed to see this. I've heard about parts of it. I've heard about this, we're going to do this next, and it turns out in the end, when you see the product revealed, that one little thing you heard about was a feature on this piece of gear. Well, that's the way that it is. It all runs that way. Engineers are working on certain parts of this product. It could be a car. It could be a cell phone. It could be aircraft technology. It could be ET technology. That's the way that things work. And the Air Force working that way, well, so does General Motors, and so does Verizon, and so does Google, and so does Apple. It all runs the same way. You don't need the atomic program. You don't need to have everything to be ET based. And if you are dealing with that technology, certainly that's the way that it's going to run. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, it's Tanner from Georgia.
Hey, Tanner from Georgia. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. Can I change the subject a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. Me and my buddy that I work with every day, we've been doing a lot of research on Atlantis lately.
Uh-huh.
And we kind of have this new theory, and I don't know if you've ever heard it before. You know how Wright-Patterson talks about the Sumerian account and how they talk about the Anunnaki and all that stuff? Well, let's say the Christian, stories that were passed down that were kind of altered over time. What if the Sumerian stories were also, brought down over thousands of years? So you talk about the history of Atlantis, and their teachings were brought down and kind of diluted over time. And by the time you get to the Sumerians, it's kind of altered a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, Plato's account of Atlantis, they talk about Poseidon and how he came and he taught them everything, and he had his own little property, and how he eventually had kids with one of the farmer's daughters in Atlantis. And it kind of sounds a lot like the story of Enki coming down and teaching everyone how to be a civilization. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if you've heard of Poseidon possibly being the original Anunnaki, even before the Sumerian account.
Well, let me ask you this, Tanner. Why are you questioning this yourself, or are you suggesting why not? Right?
I'm suggesting, why have I not ever heard people talk about the Sumerian account shouldn't be looked at as the original story, because it would have been brought down over thousands of years from the original story that was told by the Atlanteans.
Well, and I feel that that's always my point, right?
Okay.
That Because we have a gap. Let me be clear. Let me be very clear here. We have a gap in text. We have a gap in writing and references in history, right? There's just a gap there. So before that, now, is there somewhere on Earth right now a collection of knowledge and writings that we haven't seen yet? 50,000, 40,000, 30,000, 20,000 years old, right? From a previous civilization that was here, high technology, and it's just it's buried, right? That's just, it's the evolution of Earth. Is that there? But that gap, because the historical record that we have right now, basically, and certainly with calendar events, it stops at 650 BC. Before that, we have a problem with calendars, right? And trying to align things up. And now we have Egyptian text, and we have the Sumerian tablets and text. But before that, it's all inaccurate, and we don't know. You can't age stone. You can't and those cultures don't know a whole lot about where they came from and where their knowledge came from. So we have this huge gap. But what we do have is storytelling and word of mouth. Right? Now, if we look at, just stop right there. This is where I want to get very direct. All of these stories are similar. The virgin birth, right? The star system, the cataclysmic events, the great floods, knowledge coming from the stars and the gods and the heavens. All of this is very, very similar. So it came from somewhere. I don't think it's imagination. I don't think it's storytelling. That's, do you understand what I'm saying? So,
yes, sir.
Yeah. And so when you suggest something like that, I'm saying exactly. Exactly. I mean, exactly. I think you've got it spot on the money, Tanner. And don't ever change, my friend.
Okay. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, real quick. Go ahead.
Okay, real quick. You talk about how the pharaohs of Egypt used to have tons of power because they were said to have magical powers. They all carried staffs. Was that ancient technology that eventually was lost in translation? They eventually kept breeding with regular humans enough to where they lost their original, powers that they had. I think there's something to looking at pharaohs as demigods, possibly having ties with the Anunnaki, and then eventually losing their power because of their genes getting diluted over time.
Yep. Again, you're spot on the money. Thank you for the statement.
Okay.
Tanner,
talk to you later.
Behave.
Okay, bye.
Behave. See, that right there, Tanner is right at spot on if you think about it. Because that, what I mean is, that's why you should listen to this show. Right there. Because that the knowledge, right, is something that we all accept now. We don't accept the stuff in the textbooks and the history that we have been presented to us because of not only shows like this, but the knowledge that is out there, the research that you can do on the internet today. You can go and question what you have been told and go and listen to shows like this and researchers and read books and go out there and research and start to figure out that, hey, you know what? Things are not what they seem. What's going on out there in the world right now is not what we have been told. And so when we talk about Plato, not only Plato, but the Sumerian text and the Indian text and Asia and Japan and China, there is something else out there that is not the history that we have been told. I mean, it sounds so, for us, our circle here, so basic, right? But we get it. The rest of the world doesn't, and they are now starting to wake up. I was saying this weekend at Conscious Life, when I was doing introductions and stuff and hanging out, that no longer, right? You know this paradigm shift that we've been talking about? we're not the weird ones anymore. We're not. We're now the normals. It's everybody else that thinks that history, as we have been told, is the way that it is. It's not the case anymore. They're starting to wake up and they're going, hey, wait a minute. Those weird ones are actually the ones that I'm starting to believe now. I am so glad that mass media screwed up like they did in 2016. I'm so happy about that. And it feeds off into everything else. I'm so happy that they screwed up because everybody that believes, right, they have been fed. Now that they know that it's all been BS, the majority of it, and that shows like this and the alternative side of things is actually the correct way to go because we have questioned everything. And here we are today. We're walking around. I am so proud of all of you and all of the researchers out there because I can walk around right now and I know that I am closer to the correct path than the status quo is. And the status quo has been. It's a great feeling. You know, I know that I can go up now, not only to my parents or my family or my friends that are on the straight and narrow out there that just, you know, and I know now that I can talk and what I have to say is more valid than what they have to say. I just know that. It is just such a great feeling. It's an amazing feeling. So, I wanted to, and it is, I just feel great. You know, there was at Conscious Life, and I can't wait to get to Contact, man. I can't wait to get to Contact in the desert and continue this vibe. There was an uplifting feeling. There was a vibe that was there at Conscious Life this time around, and it's been growing over the years. But that, you know what? We are united, we are one, and we were right. And how does the rest of the world feel now? I'm serious. That is the vibe that's going on. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Gene in Atlanta. How you doing, man?
Hi, Gene in Atlanta. How are you?
I'm fine, man. Back to your guest that you had on.
Sure.
Now, I respect this guy's 40 years with the Air Force and all that good stuff at Wright-Pat.
You have
to. But correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
I think at one time or another, Corey and David had mentioned some things about what they knew about Wright-Pat. Am I right or wrong?
Yes. Yep.
So you see the kind of confliction here as to what he's saying and what they're saying?
Yep.
So where do we go with that, man?
Well, see, Gene, you know, and this was brought up to me about 50 or 100 times this past weekend, right? There were 50 Genes out there that came up to me and asked me the exact same question. And my answer to this, and I'm telling you, a couple of authors that I really, really, really respect that were there came up to me and asked me the same question. And I have to say this to everybody. And I just got a very passionate email about this subject, too, right before the show. And it's this. What do we do now? Who do we believe? What is, you know, and I get that, right? Look, we have to stand tall on this. We have to listen to not only the Davids and the Coreys, but we have to listen to the Dolans and the Moulton Howes out there and the Mike Barras. We've got to listen to everybody. We have to. What we can't do, Gene, is go, you know what? I believe this guy. I don't believe this guy. I think both are full of it. I think this guy's making it up. I don't think this guy is. You know, wait a minute here. No, you know what got us here, Gene? Was questioning and wondering and listening to everybody, everybody's experiences. That's what got us here and got us to our knowledge point today. What we can't do now is start to distrust or wonder who is telling the truth. That's not what we need to do is listen. Let's get everything out there on the table. Let's get it all in and collect it so we know and we can discuss it. You know, I
agree, but at the same time, listening to Corey and David, now some of the stuff that they're saying to me makes a lot of sense versus to what this guy is saying. You feel me?
Well, okay, but yes. Now, look,
I'm trying not to dispute this guy. I'm not trying to dispute what he's saying, but at the same time, listen to David and Corey over time. It's like it makes a lot of sense.
Right, and look, here we have a guy, with Raymond that comes on. He's got 40 years at Wright-Pat, right? He's got a book out called 50 Shades of Grays. He has had conversations with coworkers over a 40-year period about aliens at Wright-Pat, right? And what is going on over there. And then at the same time, he says, he's read Corso's books. He's a double E. He's an electrical engineer. And he's read Corso's books. And then he turns around and says, I don't think we've had help. I think that we did it on our own. Well, okay, right? That's okay. Let's listen to that. Look, I worked at Bell Labs. Nobody at Bell Labs ever said to me it was alien technology that designed transistors. I worked there for 3 years. So that doesn't mean that my experience is accurate. I'm just telling you, I never heard about ETs. I just didn't. And I worked at Bell Labs, right? But I didn't hear anything. So when I hear Raymond say the very same thing, that doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It just means that you don't know.
Yeah.
I would love, hey, Gene, I would love to go, hey, man, I was walking down the hall at Bell Labs and they, these guys were literally talking in a lab. We got to figure out this alien technology. No, I never heard it. I would love to say that I did.
Let me ask you this. All right, I was thinking about this a while ago. What if David or Corey came back to you and said, hey, look, Jimmy, we're going to bring you with us and reveal some things to you that we've never told anybody else. We want you to see it. Would you go with them?
How do you know that they haven't?
I don't. That's why I'm asking the question.
I'm going to say this. When it comes to sensational situations that are out there, not only with Corey, but there's and David and other whistleblowers out there, right? I firmly believe with the ones that I've directly connected with, that I don't think anybody is lying, okay? There's no monetary gain here, Gene. Nobody's making money. So I don't, and the amount of fame that you get out of ufology ain't worth it. You're not going to throw your life away or embarrass your friends and family because of this. So it's either one of two things with no gray area in the middle. And then I'm going to have to let you go. I've got 15 seconds. Either everything is 100% true and it's happened like they've said it is, or B, there is some serious MK Ultra uploading, mind messing with situations going on. But I believe that they believe they are speaking the truth. Okay? Mm-hmm. Do you follow me?
Okay.
All right.
I'm cool with that, man.
Hey, Gene, you have a great night, man. We'll see you tomorrow right here on the show.
All right. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you so much. What a great show tonight, and I love the discussion, and that's why we are here. This has been Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Great calls tonight. Great guest, Raymond Szymanski. Thank you so much. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar. Thank you, LJ3, Renee, Jonas, Dennis, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitola, Mark D. Kovar. Fadey by Dale. Webmaster is Drew, the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR. For the Game Changer Network, syndication is KGRA, The Planet. Oh, yeah. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2016, 2017 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. Cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I am your host, Jimmy Church. See you tomorrow night. Barry Strom, right here. Everybody be safe. Go Bagley Tappy.